Secretary. Let's talk now to Laura Blumenfeld, who's a best-selling author and Middle East analyst, former US State Department senior policy advisor for the Middle East peace process. Laura, very good to talk to you. Well, what are your thoughts on this agreement? Are you optimistic, and why do you think it's happened now?
Well, it was fascinating listening to your foreign secretary talk about hope. As an American, I'd like to talk about hope, but I really think it was a fear factor that brought us to this moment today. I think for Hamas, they were terrified. They were isolated both internally in Gaza and regionally with the other proxies being knocked out. And I think that there was a real sense of fear of the incoming Trump administration. The same can be said for Netanyahu. Also, fear would be a driving factor. Trump is like a tornado twisting on the horizon. I think Netanyahu knows he can't play Donald Trump in the way he did Biden. And also, he's probably hoping to bank a little bit of goodwill because he's got other priorities like Iran, their nuclear threat, and also, frankly, the West Bank. He'd like to annex it. And perhaps under Trump, there would be a more sympathetic approach, since there are those within his administration who see those lands of Judea and Samaria, as they call them, as biblical. I also think fear played a role for Trump himself and Biden. I mean, it's unprecedented to see this kind of cooperation between an outgoing and incoming team. And I think that, again, fear was driving them. For Biden, it just looks bad and feels bad to be departing, with hostages still in their hands. And for Trump, appearances are everything. And again, it's the look. Finally, I would just say that today Trump wrote in all caps, this is an epic ceasefire. I do think there's a kind of tragic quality to it, because it's for many people and all those bones lying amongst the rubble, it's too late.
Yeah, and as we've been reflecting throughout the programme, this was a deal that Joe Biden said was essentially on the table that he proposed way back in May, months and months ago. And it's a strange situation where you've got both the outgoing president and the incoming president both claiming credit for the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, Biden was the architect. If we think of this as a building this deal, he was the architect. He, put out the blueprint 8 months ago, and then Trump came along with his bulldozer and said there'll be all hell, and that turned into an all-hands situation. I think Trump speaks Middle East, which is, basically brute power. It's like the old saying, Hama rules. That was, a phrase put out by Tom Friedman from the New York Times. One man wins, one man weeps, and the rest is commentary. And I think that's really true here. Netanyahu, was elected as the man who advocated peace through strength. He delivered war through weakness with that surprise attack on October 7th, and he clawed his way back to a position of strength. I mean, I remember in April when the United States was threatening to withhold bombs, he said, we will fight with our fingernails if we have to. Well, now with this kind of string of assassinations and decapitating Hezbollah, taking out Iran's air defenses, the fall of Assad in Syria, he can finally say that he's back in a position of strength. And again, if you watch the hearings this morning with Marco Rubio as the incoming Secretary of State, Trump is fully assuming that mantle of that slogan, peace through strength, which, of course, is just a throwback to Ronald Reagan, who was sworn in on Inauguration Day with the split screen footage of hostages being released, held by Iran, American hostages being freed. So here we are, we've come full circle, peace through strength. We'll see what that brings.
It's funny, though, when you say, Trump said there'll be all hell to pay, you wonder what sort of hold he had over Benjamin Netanyahu in particular. What was he threatening?
Well, I think that, Israel is heavily dependent on weapons. It is the love language, horrible to say, but the United States, it's how they communicate support, whether it's to Israel or to Ukraine. And the one time that I saw Netanyahu seem really kind of unhinged was when Biden threatened to withhold weapons. So I think, first of all, that's the very first bit of leverage he has. And there's just a kind of indifference that Trump has toward anybody when he senses that there's a lack of loyalty. He famously dismissed Netanyahu at the end of the last administration by saying, F him, right? So there's no niceties there. Biden is kind of more of the empathetic, decent guy. And sometimes, nice guys finish last, especially in the Middle East.
Very well put. Laura, thank you very much indeed. Good to have you with us. Thank you for your analysis.
Thank you.
Well, BBC